We have some major, very consequential news from the Supreme Court. Major decisions at the Supreme Court don't happen every day. We got a very, very important decision yesterday where the Supreme Court has decided that the language of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 protects LGBT workers under the sex discrimination provision. Now, this is something I've been talking to you about for years. And in fact, since the June of 2015 Supreme Court decision, which said states can't ban same-sex marriage, we predicted, we've been watching as the sort of new focus of anti-gay bigotry has been employment discrimination, so-called religious freedom when it comes to LGBT workers. And even though LGBT folks have been able to marry in all 50 states since June of 2015. In many states, you can still legally fire someone for their perceived or actual sexual orientation. And perceived is an important part of that. You don't actually have to be LGBT to be fired if someone thought you were, as crazy as that is. And in many states, either way, it is legal. So this decision from the Supreme Court was a 6-3 decision, which with Donald Trump's appointee, Neil Gorsuch, writing the majority opinion, which we will address. Gorsuch was joined by Chief Justice John Roberts, a Bush appointee, as well as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justices Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan. So all of this goes back to Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 64. And that Title VII very clearly says workers can't be discriminated against by their employers on the basis of race, religion, national origin, and sex. And what was really at issue in this case is whether sex, as designated in 1964, includes sexual orientation and gender identity. So understand that the people fighting for LGBT discrimination here were Trump administration lawyers. The Trump administration was the side arguing that back in 1964, when people talked about sex discrimination, they meant bias against men or women, quite simply. That they argued, Trump's lawyers did, that this provision in 1964 does not include sexual orientation. It doesn't include gender identity. And that if you want to protect those characteristics, you would need a new law, that the 64 law would not protect them. Now, the counter argument, which is a strong one that ultimately was accepted by the court, and the court sided with this argument. The other argument was any decision made about sexual orientation or transgender status is by definition about sex as designated in 1964. So I'll give you an example. If you're discriminating against someone because they are a man attracted to other men, right, which would be sexual orientation discrimination, you are singling them out as men attracted to men rather than women attracted to men, meaning their male sex is part of the discrimination, period. Another example, if you are firing someone because they are transgender, it is because you've evaluated that their biological birth sex differs from their current gender identity, and thus sex is part of that discrimination. So this is a very important decision. Two of the three big pillars of anti-gay discrimination have been toppled, have been knocked down in the last 5 years. So back in 2015, Supreme Court decided you can't stop people from being married, even if they are both men or both women. Same-sex marriage bans are banned. Now in 2020, almost exactly 5 years later, the Supreme Court decided that employees cannot be discriminated against on the basis of their sexual orientation and gender identity. Those are two of the three pillars. The last pillar would be including sexual orientation in business non-discrimination law, in the sense of you can choose in many states to refuse service to someone on the basis of their sexual orientation, real or perceived. There are many states that have outlawed this, but there are many states that have not. And a Supreme Court decision on that would be sort of breaking down the third anti-gay pillar. Now, there are some caveats here. This is a good decision and this is the right decision, but there are some important things to think about. First of all, This decision from the Supreme Court may well prevent some LGBT folks from being fired, but others are still going to be fired, and employers will just be more careful about how they do it. They certainly won't say it has anything to do with sexual orientation or gender identity, but it still could be. And there are going to be a lot of legal cases, very expensive legal cases, that will be fought over, can you prove that it was actually because of sexual orientation or gender identity? This is a big problem in general in employment discrimination. Number two, many states don't require an explanation about why you're firing someone. These are at-will states where an employer can just say, your position has been eliminated. We no longer require your services. And that would make it very difficult to really know if one of these protected statuses is at play. Now, there are also other legal infrastructures, like, for example, the Fair Housing Act, which aren't affected by this decision. So the Fair Housing Act will maybe be fought in court, and you could point to this decision as precedent. But right now, the Fair Housing Act doesn't ban discrimination against, for example, LGBT tenants. So a landlord could say, I don't want LGBT tenants in a lot of states, and that would not be banned by the Fair Housing Act. Maybe this decision from yesterday could be used to justify changing the Fair Housing Act. Now, just one other really important thing for context. The Trump administration just rolled back protections for trans people 2 days ago. So yesterday's decision is progress. It's a step forward. And on Monday, we had a step back. And this is all still a really big fight. And this is just one piece of the pie, one piece of the puzzle. Lastly, and very importantly, if we don't vote Donald Trump out in November, he gets to pick, in all likelihood, more Supreme Court justices. And he will mostly choose people who will fall on the wrong side of causes like these. Now, a lot of people are going to say, but David, hold on. Gorsuch, who Trump selected, was with the majority here. That's right. He happened to get it right. But let's be frank, this was a really obvious case. The three justices who dissented, I vehemently disagree with. And this was a relatively easy case, all things considered. If we want to be sure that we get more decisions like this in the future, we have to be absolutely positive that it's going to be Joe Biden appointing Supreme Court justices rather than Donald Trump. Let's not forget about that, as we are just 4.5 months from a presidential election. Privacy.com is one of our sponsors, and they're giving you $5 just for using their free service at privacy.com/Pakman. Privacy is a service I've been using for a while now. I love it. It saves me a bunch of headaches. It's completely free, and it's very quick to set up. And here's how it works. When you pay for something online or over the phone, instead of exposing your real credit card number, Privacy lets you generate virtual card numbers. The payments are withdrawn from your checking account, but your real card number stays completely private, and you do it all with one click. You can autofill the card number in your web browser, on the phone. You can create 12 virtual cards a month. You can set spending limits, freeze them, delete them whenever you want. I especially love it for free trials where you need to give a credit card number, because I can destroy the virtual card number as soon as I give it to the company, and I know I won't be charged in the future. If you're ordering food over the phone, why do I need to give a restaurant my real card number if I don't have to? Companies don't have to know who you are. Your real credit card number is protected from the data breaches that happen, unfortunately, more often than we would like, and it's completely free. They do have a paid version with different tiers where you can create more virtual credit card numbers per month, cashback rewards, extra security features. But go ahead and sign up for the free service. It's a no-brainer. Companies can't charge you unexpectedly. You're protected from identity theft. It costs you nothing. And Privacy is giving you $5 to spend just for signing up when you go to privacy.com/Pakman.